What we'll be exploring today is inheritance. So, lastly, we started with object oriented programming structure, and today we'll see one of the prominent features called inheritance, where you can reuse the programs which you have created as in your classes. Then we'll see what are modules, the built-in modules, the packages, and we'll go through various packages like OS, regular expressions, JSON, requests. We will see some built-in modules today as well. So let's start with inheritance. But before we go with inheritance, so very quick review to the previous session. In our last session, we did understand what is a class, what is an object. So you create a class, you write a constructor where you define the attributes. Now there may be attributes with respect to the class or with respect to an object, and you can define the functions in the class, right? So we did this entire oops program. So today we'll go through with something known as inheritance. Let's write a new Python file and let us name it like session number 8.
Ishan, please start recording the session.
Yes, it's already there, Asim.
Okay, fine.
Okay, so let's say we'll take a use case for Amazon e-commerce. Let's say Amazon e-commerce platform. So what we have is we have various products on Amazon e-commerce platform, right? So there is a product called mobile phone. There is another product called let's say LED TV, or let's say a shoe, right? So we'll take just two distinctive products here. Now, if you need to represent them in the object-oriented programming structure, so you need to define the class. So we have a rule to come up with oops part. So the rule says, so the oops principle, number one, think of an object. Number two, you need to associate data and create its class. Number three, from class, create real objects in memory, right? So a very basic principle. So I already have these two objects in my mind. So one is this mobile phone, another one is this guy called shoe, right? So mobile phone can have an ID. Let's say product ID. Mobile phone will have a brand. Then this guy can have a price. So we can even have a name of the product. Then for a mobile phone, there might be OS, RAM, memory, and many other you see attributes can be linked. But when it comes to the shoe, so there are few common attributes. If you see, these are the common attributes which even shoe will have: the product ID, name, brand, price. But thereafter we can have a size of the shoe, and let's say if there is any comfort level of a shoe, right? And various other attributes can be associated. So how I'm going to create the classes, right? So I'll say a class called mobile phone, and then I'll define the constructor. And we know when the constructor will be executed, when you will create the object, right? So here I will pass PID, name, brand, price, OS, RAM, and memory. So thereafter you can say self.pid is PID, self.name is name, self.brand is brand. So we are creating the attributes and we are putting up the data in them. So self.os is OS, and then moving ahead we got self.ram as RAM, and lastly self.memory as memory. So this is what we got as in our constructor, and thereafter I can move ahead. If you want, you can create a function like, let's say, show mobile phone, where I can just print out the details of the mobile phone. Let us say a PID. So this goes like self.pid, then a bar, and then says self dot name, then I can print down the brand, print all right, so this goes like self dot brand, then I got self dot price. So I'm just printing out all of the attributes, OS, then the RAM, and then the memory, right? So this is how you create the structure of an object. So I can come here and I can say M1 is a mobile phone, but now you need to pass the inputs, right? So what is the product ID? What is the name? So let's say an iPhone X. Then what is the brand? Let's say an Apple. So price goes like 70,000. Then the iOS is the OS. Let's say RAM is 4 and memory is 256. So these details, they will be copied into these variables, and further these self.pid name, brand, price, OS, RAM, and memory. So they will be the attributes in your object, right? So what happened in the memory? Let's quickly have a look onto that as well. So in the memory here, there will be an object called mobile phone. So this guy is the object, and we'll have these attributes here: PID, name, brand, price, OS, RAM, and the memory, right? So these are the attributes in my object, and there is this fellow called M1 who is a reference variable which will hold the hash code of your object. Let us assume that the hash code is 1001, right? So you can anytime get this ID printed, hex ID of your object you can print, and you can see what is the hash code, but I'm just assuming this part. So this is how you get the object in the memory, and we do have the data associated as of now, right? So the data associated goes like this 101 iPhone X and Apple. So this is the data which will be associated here. So I'll just write down few details. So here we go with the object, right? And other details, guys, right? So we do have other details as well. Now, once you created this object, you want to display the data in the object. So you got this function called show mobile phone. So you can anytime come up and say show the mobile phone, and you run the program. So what you see is the data in your object. The way you want to display, you can display it. I can even come here and say please print me m1 dot underscore underscore dictionary. So this will print me your attributes and the values associated in your object, right? So the dictionary of your object will be printed. So very basic quick review on what we have been doing in our previous sessions, right? Now same way I need to implement this guy called shoe. So the way you created this class mobile, in a similar way let us create another class shoe, and here we have these four attributes common. Thereafter I have this guy called size and comfort level. Let's say size and color, right? So this will be a bit more easier to follow. So size and color, so everything is same, but we don't have OS, RAM, and memory in shoe, but we have size and color in the shoe. So we'll just put up size and color here. So we'll not say show mobile phone, rather we'll say this is your show of shoe. And once again, we don't have OS, RAM, and memory here, but of course we do have size and we do have the color. So moving ahead, the way you created a mobile phone object, in a similar way you can create a shoe. So shoe can have a product ID, right? Shoe can have a name. Let's say it's Alpha Bounce. Then there can be a brand. Let's say it's Adidas. Then we'll have a price. Let's say 8,000. Size 9, color let's say black. So this is the data which is associated in another object. So we got in the memory one more object which is quite similar to your mobile phone, but of course the attributes will be different, right? So here you got this guy as shoe. So these details are not there, these attributes are not there. All right, so let us say you got size and color here. So this is assuming 2001 some another hash code, and this guy is S1, the reference to the object. So the data in your object is added by us, right? So this is some like 201 Alpha Bounce Adidas and the other details guys, right? So this is the other object. Now what is the problem, right? So is there any problem if you do develop in this way? That may be one of the questions, right? What exactly is the concern here? This is a perfect way of writing the code, but in this entire code concept we are doing some repetition. So if you will see, we are doing some repetition here, and this repetition is where the attributes PID, name, brand and price is getting repeated. So anytime if you will create any object for an e-commerce platform, you will be able to see that these attributes are going to be repeated commonly. So what is inheritance all about, right? So guys, inheritance which we have to discuss here is all about reducing the effort of writing repetitive code again and again. So there is some repetitive code which you're writing again and again, and you should reduce that effort. So can I get one acknowledgement here? Did you understand what is the challenge here? You are printing the, you are putting up the same values, you are printing up the same attributes again and again, right? So you are rewriting the same code again and again. So these attributes and the printing code or any XYZ code which you will be writing, the common code is once again written for us. So can I get one acknowledgement guys? Are we clear what is the challenge here? Smiley awaited from all of you in case we are good to go, or a query in case you are unable to understand what is the challenge here. Okay, so how we can now reduce this problem, or we can solve this problem with the help of inheritance. Let us see that. So I'm going to code the same classes, but I'll create one more class called product. So when I created this class product, I'll define one constructor here. The common code which is listed here, if you can see this self.pid name brand price, so this common code I'll move here. Let's take this PID brand name price here. Same way, the common code printing I'm gonna take from here and put it here. So I'll say define show the product like this. So guys, the common code is now moved from the class mobile phone into the class product, and we say mobile phone is the child of product. So this is known as is a relationship. So we how do we say it? So we say mobile phone is a product. Now product becomes the parent. So this guy is parent, and this guy becomes the child. Moving ahead, same thing I'm going to do with the shoe. So I'll just come up and link the product here. So remove these common attributes from here, and remove these common printing things here. So now my mobile phone and shoe, they are shortened, and in the constructor here I will simply say product dot underscore underscore init. So I'll execute the init of the parent, and I'll pass these four inputs here. So where you are writing 4 lines of code to put up the data, it is now replaced with a single line of code. Same way it will go here for the shoe. And where you were printing out the statements, here you can say your product dot show the product, and you pass this guy called self here. Same way product dot show the product, and you pass the self here. So guys, what is now happening for us, right? Common properties, they are shifted in a class product. In the mobile phone, we created this relationship. This is a syntactical approach to create inheritance relationship. If you can see, you start a bracket and you put the class name. Now whenever you will create the object of mobile phone, so we'll create the object in the same way. So this is how you were creating the object earlier. We'll create the object in the same way. Now this 101 iPhone X, Apple, and 70,000 will be copied here, and this will be passed into the parents constructor, and there you will get these details, right, associated. Then these three details, which were custom details for a mobile phone, that is only entertained by the mobile phone. Same goes with the shoe. So you create a mobile phone, and then let us create a shoe. And then what I'll do is I'll say m1 dot show the mobile phone. The moment you say show mobile phone will internally execute the show product of the parent. So self is this reference variable m1 itself, so it will display the data. Then I will say s1 dot show the shoe. So you run the program. So what do you see? Okay, so I think I missed out something here, so just give me a moment. Yes, so here we have this self and a comma. So you need to pass this first input self here, both the cases, when you're calling the products in it here, when you're executing the products in it here. So here we are with the same outputs, right? But at the same time, now if you are going to write n number of classes, so you can reuse this common code, right? So inheritance will help us for reusability. So guys, can I get one acknowledgement here?
Ishan, one question.
Yes.
We definitely saved the number of line of code, but don't you think we have increased the number of objects in memory?
No. So if I talk about objects, so let me come here and put up this m1 underscore underscore dictionary, and then we'll say s1 dot underscore underscore dictionary. Let us print out the dictionaries for both the m1 and s1. So what you see is that there is no separate object created in the memory. Your m1 and s1, which are pointing to two different objects, so all the attributes, they go in them. right? So it's not like that. It's not like that.
Take it in this way. I'm creating a child class object from a child class, which is calling the features of the parent class as well. So to storing those variables, shouldn't it create an object of parent class as well?
No. That is what Python basically optimizes this part, right? So we are not doing this way that there is PID, name, brand, and price in this product object. So there is no parent object getting created in the memory. So this way we
So
are not
where we
working.
are storing those four values?
So here in the object itself. Now I'll give you an example, right? How inheritance relationship works basically here in Python. So let's say you have your parent has a vehicle, but you don't have a vehicle. So you access your parent's vehicle to ride. But in case you have your vehicle, you access your vehicle and not your parent's vehicle. So here what I am doing is I have created classes in the memory. So there are two classes which are there in the memory. They have a relationship, right? So they are not the objects. You need to understand the point here. So this is the class product and this is the class mobile phone. Now they have a relationship. So they have a relationship over here. So this guy has its own init and there is one function called show product, right? And this guy is having its own init and a function called show mobile phone. Now what is happening over here? So you are executing the init method of mobile phone class, but mobile phone class internally is using the init method of the product as well. But whatever the attributes written in this class or this class will go in the same single object. Why? If you see here in my code, M1 is the reference variable. So what is M1? It's a reference variable. It will have a hash code. Let's say 1001. Now this 1001 is copied over here into self. So self becomes 1001. When you say product dot underscore underscore init, basically we are using the same self, that is 1001. So the parent class constructor will use and create the attributes in your mobile phone object itself, right? So you are going to use the code from the parent class, but eventually whatever happens is in your object only. So good to go here.
Yeah, fine.
Right, so this is how inheritance in Python is very much different from traditional C++ or Java oops. So there you get parent object in the memory and then the child object in the memory, but here we have no such concerns. There is only one single object in the memory that is pointed by M1, and same way for the S1, one single object should. No product object will be created. So if you want to create a product object, you need to write the code separately. You need to come up and say that there is some P1 which is a product, and here the details shall go into the constructor. So guys, the rule of inheritance, let us see. So this is a very quick demo on where we are understanding why we will be using inheritance, right? So this entire curriculum, this entire presentation was why inheritance, right? So what exactly is inheritance? Now I'm going to put up it once again. Okay, just give me a moment. Okay, so let us write one more Python file. So here I'm going to now come up and explore you guys with one of the very basic example. What is inheritance and rule of inheritance? So rule of inheritance says if child has no function or attribute it can access from parent. Let us see what I'm trying to come up and put this definition as through an example. So there is a class called CA. Now CA defines one function called init, and we define an attribute A and B to go in this guy, right? So self dot A is A, or I'll take it in a more better way. Let us say there is a class called employee. So employee has an EID and a name. So you say self dot EID assign EID and self dot name assign name. So these are the two attributes, and I'll come up and say define show employee, where I will say print employee, comma, let's say self dot EID, and let's say one bar, and then I will say self dot name. So if you create the object of employee, right, so now we have to ensure that there are two inputs which we pass. One is the EID, another one is the name, right? Now I can say e1 dot show the employee, which will display the details. So this is a basic object oriented programming structure code. So employee 101 and John. Now what is there in the object? If you want to print that, so I'll say employee object pointed by e1 contains, right? So what this guy contains, so I'll just say e1 dot underscore underscore dictionary. So what is there in the employee object? In the employee object, you got two attributes, EID, name, with the values 101 and the John. Now what is contained in the employee class? So employee class contains, let us say what is there in the employee class. So I'll come here and I'll say employee dot underscore underscore dictionary. Now when you run the program, so what you observe here is something different. Your object contains the attributes, and class contains this function called underscore underscore init, which is a constructor. Then there's a function called show employee. Now other than this, your class contains some more stuff. It's a built-in stuff which your class will contain, right? But we do understand that this constructor and show employee belongs to class. All right, so constructor and show employee belongs to class employee. But the attributes, EID and name shall belong to the object, right? So when I say E1 as employee, so self over here will be same as E1. So let me show you as a proof of concept. So I'll say E1 is comma E1. Then I'll even say self is comma self. So guys, we have already seen this part in our OOPS session, but let me come up and do it once again. So what you see is your E1 is an object of employee at this hash code D68. So is the self, right? So it means when I say self.eid and self.name, it actually means the EID and name of the employee object. Guys, can I get a smiley here? Is this part clear to everyone? Right? Wonderful, great. Now, for this class employee, we have this EID and name. I'm going to create a class called contract employee. And contract employee is the child of employee, and I'll say pass. So what I did, I created another class and I have a relationship established with employee. So this relationship is known as is a relation. At the same time, we need to understand the point that contract employee is child of employee. So this is the exact relationship, right? So parent and child relationship is created. Now I'll just, comment down these snippets here. So just try to print what is there in employee. So I'll say employee dot underscore underscore dictionary. And then I will print down what is there in the contract employee, right? So employee class contains, and thereafter I'm going to print contract employee class contains. Let us see what is there in these two classes. So when I run the program, what I see is my employee class here contains a constructor in it, contains show employee and various other built-in things. But contract employee class contains this module main and documentation none. So there is no init, no function in this contract employee class, right? Now, this is the relationship between two classes, that if I create the object of my contract employee, let's say CE1 is a contract employee, and you try to run the code, you get an error. It says underscore underscore init missing two required arguments, EID and name. Since your child class has no init constructor, you get an error, because if you don't have the constructor and your parent has it, so you are by default accessing your parent's constructor. So the rule of inheritance over here says that, so if child will not have resources, it can access from the parent. If child has no function or attribute, it can access from parent. So here I will pass EID and the name. Now what happened? You created an object of contract employee, but you use the constructor of parent. In the parent's constructor, this guy's self here, so if you see this self over here, it will mean CE1. Now that is where we understand one of the major differences, right? So CE1 is this self, and hence in the object pointed by CE1, you get the ID and name. So now if you come here and say print me CE1 dot underscore underscore dictionary, right? So you are basically now looking into the contract employee object pointed by CE1 contains. So when you run the code, you see EID and name coming in. It means what? It means that you have the data in your child object which came in due to the constructor of the parent, right? So we are using the parent's property. I am using my parent's vehicle to ride, and I am fulfilling the objective. Same way, I can even say CE1 dot show the employee. Now, show employee method is not available in the child. Since it is not available in the child, it will go into the parent and see whether the show employee method is there. If it is there, access that. And hence, when you run the code, you get to see the details. So guys, I hope what exactly is inheritance and what is the rule of inheritance is clear to everyone. Anyone with any query? So you guys can please discuss if you have any query here. So Arvind, Asim, Lalit, Vinay, guys, query to anyone or an acknowledgement? Great. All right. So now what I'm gonna do next is switch down to the very basics. We'll come out of oops from Python, and we'll start exploring what is meant by a module. Now, when I will say session 8b and hit enter, so a Python file is created. So guys, this Python file is known as a module, right? So by default, whatever Python file you are creating is known as a module. All right, so it is known as a module. Now in this Python over here in the file, I'll create one variable. Let's say the app name is I'll say as Zomato, and let's say a define function apply promo code, where I'll take one promo code as input and one amount as input. So I'll just come up and do a printing here. So promo code successfully applied. So promo code this successfully applied on amount this dot format. I'll say the promo code and the amount. I can even create a class. Let's say this class is a student. I can define some constructor here where I will take inputs like roll number and name. So self dot roll number is a roll number and self dot name is name. Then I'm going to say the show function where I will simply print out the student details. So this goes like roll number, which is your self dot roll number, and a self dot name. So I created, you see these many things here, a normal variable, or even you can create some dictionary, some list. I create one function and one class here. Let us create another Python file. So this time I'm going to do a right click and say a new Python file with session 8c. Now I want to use the snippets which you have written in your 8b.py in 8c.py. So I can simply say import session 8b. So there is a statement called import statement which you can use, and thereafter you can come here and say print session 8b dot app name. Now when I run the program, so you get to see Zomato. I can even say session 8b dot apply the promo code. Let's say the promo code is Zomato and the amount is 500. And I can even create an object like sref is session 8b dot student with roll number and the name. Then I can say sref dot show. So you run the program, and here what you see is the data, the program session 8b which you created is accessible in session 8c. So import session 8b and then you are able to use it in this manner. Guys, is this very much simple and clear to everyone? The import statement, how it is working. So we'll see in different ways how you can do an import in your Python modules. So this can be any name, right? This can be any name of your choice. This is a reference variable pointing to the student object. Okay, now let us create this Python module, one more Python file, which is known as a Python module itself, session 8d. So here I will say 8b as S8. And then I can use the same thing with the S8. So you got an alias, right? So why to use this big name session 8b, why not to come up and say as S8? So we are importing the module as alias, right? So S8 is acting as alias. So instead of saying session 8b now, you can simply say S8 or any name of your choice, right? So this is like totally dependent on you what name you want to give it. So guys, I hope this alias part is also clear to everyone, right? So you say import name of the Python module as then any name of your choice. Now there may be one more way to import. So I can say a new Python file. This goes like session 8e. So I'll say from session 8b import all. Now if you do this, so you need not to worry about using any alias further, because you are saying let us import all, so you can now directly use them. So if you run the program, so here you go. So a very crisp difference between the three different terminologies. You got a module, you want to use it in another module, you import it. So you access anything and everything with the module name. If your module name is a bit different or difficult to use everywhere, you use an alias. And then with the alias, you can import. I mean, you can access. You don't want to use alias, you can say from session 8b import star. So there we are not using any alias, right? So directly use it, directly access it, it's gonna work in the same way. So in my session 8b, let's say the app name is Zomato, right? So let us comment like this. You modify there, you run the program here, you see the modifications. So I'll write down one more Python file here. Let's say session 8 of F. So now I'll say from session 8b, you import apply promo code. So now I can say apply promo code. Let's say Zomato and the amount is 500. When you run the program, so this code works for us. But in case you wanna now access the app name, this is not accessible. Same way, if you wanna create the object of student, this will now not be accessible for you. So you can individually do an import. You can import the app name. You can import the class student, right? So you can even do an individual import if you want to do. So that is exactly up to you how you wanna use these various different ways. So four different constructs which we have seen here, guys. Anyone with any query here, how we can use the import statements in different ways when it comes to the Python module? An acknowledgement awaited in case we are all good to go here. Anyone who is facing any challenge can please ask. Now in Python, you can create your own folders, right? I can come here and say right click and say a new Python package. So Python package is nothing, it's a folder which you are going to create. But this is a special kind of a folder. Let's try to create one. So I'll say the package is named as, let's say, oops, and say okay. So the moment you create a package called oops, in Python, this is just a folder with underscore underscore init underscore underscore dot py file. Now this is a Python file which is by default added in any folder which you create in your Python. Now in my oops, I'm going to create another Python file. Let us say this is my session 8G, and here I will say a function called show, which will simply say, or let's say a function called hello, which will say hello from oops package. Now there is one package which contains a Python module, and it contains a function. Now my question is, how can I access this hello function in this new Python file? Let's say session 8h. So what do you think? What statement I should write here? What import statement should I write here so that I can execute this guy called hello? So an acknowledgement awaited from all of you. So guys, what do you think? What we should write here? So we got a package here.
And then the file.
Yes, please. We'll say what statement here. So import oops. Then I can say a dot session 8g. Let's say as s8g. Then I can say s8g dot hello, right? So this is one way how you are accessing it. The other way around can be from oops dot session 8g import all, or we can come up and say from oops dot session 8g import only hello, and then you can directly execute this guy called hello. So guys, I hope this is also very well clear to everyone. Once again, a smiley awaited from all of you, an acknowledgement awaited. So Arvind, Asim, Lalit and Vinay, guys, how we do an import from one Python file into the other, or if you have a package in the Python, how you can do it, right? So you just use this dot operator. So before the dot, you got this guy called as a folder or a Python package. So Asim, Lalit, guys, good to go? All right, great. So now let's have a small break, and after the break, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna introduce something known as built-in modules in Python, right? So we'll explore some built-in modules. So as of now, we created our own modules, but there exist so many built-in modules in Python. So how they work, we are going to explore them. So let's have a small break, guys.